Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and as a courtesy via remote means in accordance with applicable law. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public and board members, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if tech problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless required by law. So we are very pleased this evening to.
In, right?
Come in.
Hi,
I think-
Ted. Gotcha.
Good, got me?
Yeah, we got the picture. We're looking right up your nose. It's awesome. It's great. Well,
Turn your screen down.
yeah, do we tilt your screen forward a little bit?
You're fine, Ted.
No,
Don't
much
let it
better.
get on.
There,
Much that Hollywood approach. Do we have minutes to
Yes, Madam
read?
Chair, we have 2 minutes.
See meeting.
Motion for the minutes?
I will first move the minutes of November 7th, 2024 as submitted without correction. Second.
Ooh, very nice. All right, all those in favor, let's do a roll call.
JRI.
Friend, I.
Al,
Sean, I.
Betsy, I, Kathleen, I. Okay,
Dead eye.
okay, great, thank you.
Now, the minutes of the 12th, I do have some corrections.
Okay,
Turn to when.
what month, did October 12th?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is November 12th, 2024.
Okay,
Under the heading of water and sewer.
okay,
I would first suggest that we strike the and sewer on the headline and just talk about water. We talk about sewer later.
okay,
And then as we're reading that first paragraph on the third sentence, Ms. McKinnon reminded the group that, and I would say water is an enterprise fund. Get rid of the and sewer because sewer is not part of the enterprise fund,
exactly right.
okay? On the next page, under sewer. That first sentence, the end of the first sentence, or halfway through, I should say. We are off because the plant was offline for all month. Which is all of 4 months. So you separate the all from the month and put the word of in there. Okay, and then the next page, at the top of the page, sewer capital request. It says 200,000. I don't think it was 20 grand or 2 grand. I think it's 200 grand. Add a zero to the end of that. So it's $200,000. Okay,
Yes. Great,
and then in the last paragraph, where it starts out with Mr. Wiley. I'd like to do a little bit of wordsmithing here, if you don't mind.
nope, you
Mr.
go for
Wiley
it.
asked how we can address. Scratch the word with town meeting. And then scratch and regarding, scratch the voters, the need to provide funding for the next 5 years.
Ted, can I put this on, try to hook up through that, see what happens?
Having to consider an override every year. Then the rest is fine. If you want me, I'll show you that
Are you
later.
gonna? I mean, they're gonna see me.
Anybody drive a motion for the minutes of 11/12 as amended,
So moved.
Second.
okay? And all those in favor, start JR,
JRI.
Al, Fred,
And I.
Sean, Betsy, I, Kathleen, I, Teddy?
Aye.
Okay, so they're here, they're gonna do their presentation, Teddy, so you should mute and then, unless you wanna chat in.
Okay. Look,
It's the little red,
Where's the
red
button? Where's the
microphone.
button?
There you go, perfect. Mary, are you who's the host this evening?
I am.
Okay, can you get a picture of us instead of Teddy? Teddy's got a paper in front of the screen.
You're showing up on the recording. Let me see if I can grab it here.
Okay,
You might have to go to the. Just double click on it, I think.
because they must have had a lunch up here.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you.
Over the floor, I don't know what happened.
They had a party up here.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Now, we're going to start with facilities. Katie St. Clair is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And hit it. Floor is yours, madam.
Hey, are you in, Clearville?
Yeah. Okay, great. And did you send us this budget? This,
Slideshow, yeah, last week,
oh, so it's the same one from last week. Okay.
yeah.
Not that I'm complaining. It was a lovely slideshow and I'm happy to see it again.
There are some slides that you didn't see the first time because I skipped them.
Like the total, right? The total,
Totals have been corrected.
okay. Are you gonna, be able to email that to us? The new one, the updated one, or?
The slides you have are the slides you're
They're
gonna
in
see
there
tonight.
already.
Exactly, okay,
Just when I showed them last week, I skipped them,
thank you.
certain
Okay.
ones that didn't pertain to
Perfect.
capital.
Perfect.
Um,
Oh, I like it.
Look at that curtain.
Huh?
Wow.
Fancy.
Some people know what it is.
Man, I don't want to come up next.
We're gonna prepare town meeting next.
So, when I started, I looked at the facilities department as a whole and created some goals. I'm trying to continue these goals until they're accomplished and then I'll change them, so every year we'll have some new goals. So this year, our focus is to continue with a clean and safe environment, continue with energy savings measures, assess facilities and its infrastructure, increase staff trainings and skills, and improve the overall communication between the community and departments. The facility department is built up of 63 buildings, over 850 square feet of building space. 1,100 employees that we have to make sure are safe and comfortable, 267 HVAC units, 448 sinks, 403 toilets, 1 maintenance man, 1 HVAC technician. The funding for our department is in the gray. These positions are funded through the school, so we have an energy manager who oversees the school and the town. We have 21 school custodians and 2 groundkeepers. The town covers the facility director's position, the HVAC tech, and the maintenance tech.
What does how many buildings is the town maintenance tech?
63.
All 63, thank you.
We have a work order system, so we did 2,700 work orders in FY '24. Currently, 80% of our work orders come from the school budget. There's been a 9% increase in work orders since I've begun.
And
And
9%
yeah,
since you started?
Yep.
Oh, mother.
and partially that is, there was a lot of change in rollover and departments didn't know about the work order system. So I've been re-advertising it.
So Katie, could you go back to the 80% of work orders are from the school? You said 80%. So 80% of the requests, but we should think about if the budget, if
This is only work orders, so, you know, your
Okay.
toilet's running, you got a roof leak,
So
so
80% of
80%
the
of
total
those-
work orders are for schools.
school.
And those go to the custodians in this, or the maintenance workers in the school, or they go to the town,
They go to me.
to the town?
So is there room in that to divert some of the more mundane?
Yeah, so what we did was when I came here, it went directly to me. I've slowly started to create a filter. So now at some of the schools, it goes to the lead custodian, they decide whether or not they can do it. And then it gets trickled down to me, Andy, or the HVAC.
Is that giving you any relief from some of the more mundane ones, or do we still have
No,
some way to
because
go?
before I was here, there was somebody who was kind of watching the work orders come in and just sending them. The only thing it helped me is I don't have to send them, they're automatically getting sent now. And if the custodians, the only thing is you still have to watch them, because a custodian might say, well, there's a smoky smell in a classroom, I didn't smell anything, no big deal. Well, we have to look at that, that's a smoky smell, could be anything. So I don't have a choice, I wanna send somebody, I'm not gonna just let a custodian, or if the custodian has a kid throwing up, they have to take care of that, they're gonna forget about the smoky smell in the classroom.
So I guess, let me use an example, like a light bulb has to get changed. Cause there were examples previously that, you know, all of a sudden it would almost be rising to the level of an electrician being called to change a light bulb. Which cost us money and was not a good use of people
Yeah.
resources or money. Have we been able to?
On the
work
school
around that?
side, the custodians take care of that.
So that has.
Minor maintenance. Town side, we're doing it. Me and Andy and Jim are doing all of it.
Why is that? Is that awful to ask? Maybe I should retract that. I'll retract
But there's
that.
nobody else to do it. It's just
Yeah,
the
I mean,
answer to the question.
Well, there's
right.
custodians in the buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so moving on.
Well, you know, to this 80%, I think it might appear that they're creating all your work, but if we go back to the page where it said who we are,
Mhm.
and you look at the 63 buildings and the 850,000 square feet, big chunk of that's the schools. Those huge school buildings are a big part of our overall complex for the community.
Not 80% though.
But it's not unreasonable to think they should have the lion's share of the orders, because they have more
Yeah,
property.
and they
Yeah,
have
of
more
course.
people in their buildings.
And it's also a lot more rough use. I mean,
Use.
kids,
Yeah.
kids are there, they're, you know, the kids are, there's a
They're
lot,
hard on the
but
things.
they're,
Most
well,
of
it's a
the
high
time.
volume of, they're kids.
Most of the
Senior
same.
center is pretty high.
Just wanted to make that.
All right,
So out of 105 days, we only had 69 days that we were fully staffed, meaning me, Andy, and Jim were here. Some of these days, there could have been one person here, only me. Many of those days were only me. And my point of putting this in is, if anything was to happen at 2 locations, nobody's gonna be able to get to both of them. So here is our
That's
year.
like those simultaneous calls at the fire department.
And they always happen. So some of our highlights and facilities is we rebuilt some garden beds, there was some drainage issue at Percy Walker Pool. We did some decking at the public bathrooms. We did bathroom improvements at the Percy Walker Pool, we upgraded HVAC controls at the Wright Building. And we enclosed open classrooms at the high school. Through ARPA, we were able to install a handicap ramp at the Girl Scout house and redo some of the exterior trim.
Excuse me, could you go back to my printout doesn't have that dollar number on it, it's too far,
11,200.
11,200.
Yeah.
Not 11 million.
No.
There's a period between the,
11,200 at the Girl Scout house.
Approved, funded by ARPA, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Some of the capital projects, we did this year where we did, bathroom renovations at the Alden Elementary School. And we saved $40,000, having our maintenance man take out the fixtures, take out some of the petitions. He was able to save the whole project $40,000. It still came in at the cost that they estimated. But with his resources, we were able to save some money. We also at the schools, invested $150,000 towards HVAC upgrades. A $50,000 Resner unit for the water treatment plant. $250,000 for classroom renovations for the school. And $198,000 for the senior center replacement. The original, job for this HVAC replacement was for all 8 units. The $198,000 will cover 1 replacement.
And how old are these units?
We're gonna get to that.
Okey dokey pokey.
We have we did apply this year for some grants. So we are doing an LED project through Eversource. We saved 35,000 on it and it cost us out of pocket 84,000. There's a 3-year payback. That's to upgrade all of the lighting at the library. At the Girl Scout house, which is the picture on the bottom right, is we are applied for this grant, haven't been approved for it yet, for $168,000 worth of insulation and the attic and crawl space. And the town hall attic insulation, $63,000 worth. If we do get accepted, these two grants accepted, it will not cost the town anything.
But does it still need to be done?
It should be,
Maybe.
done. Yeah.
It should be done.
Yeah.
So if it's not in a grant, it has to come out of operating budget.
Yeah.
Capital.
Yeah, it'd be a capital. Some of our highlighted capital requests for 2026, we need a chiller at the library.
Is that, and just pardon my ignorance, that part of the air conditioning for the
Yeah.
building? Okay,
It's the big giant unit that stands outside behind the
Okay.
fence.
okay.
At the Ashdod, we have some general upgrades for cabinetry in the kitchens, which is the image that you can see in the slide. They have some bathroom petitions that are rotting out and some general appliances, stove, sink.
I was surprised that Ashdod was as, I mean, how many years ago was that though? What?
2000.
Yeah, so it was almost 25 years ago, and it shows every minute of it.
We also have requested for 25,000 for townwide HVAC. For the next 5 years. And invest $25,000 for irrigation shed rebuilds.
What's the townwide HVAC for 25,000? 25,000 annually?
Yes, for 5 years.
2,500, no,
25,000.
sorry.
Just to get on a routine deferred maintenance situation?
Deferred maintenance, and also your controllers only last up to 10 years in all the units, so it could help with some of that. It's not gonna take, it's not gonna replace all the controllers in the whole town, it will still gonna have chillers go down and rooftops go down. But this would help alleviate some of the control pieces.
Get in front of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those irrigation sheds, those are all 11 irrigation shed. So are those the sheds that you showed JR and I?
That's the one shed, yeah,
So that, but more, it's more, how many sheds is that?
that is, there's about 10 of them that need improvements.
Okay, so that's for all 10 of them. Okay, great, thank you.
And where are they located? Just all over town?
Anywhere there's a park. And
Like at the cemetery as
The
well? or-
library.
yeah, there's one at the library, there's, Jim Savoni brought me down by a tree farm.
Oh, yeah.
There's another one, there's 2 parks over there, like, they're like soccer fields, I don't know what the name of them are.
Lincoln
They're
Street.
side by side with a nice parking lot.
Wadsworth Tennis Court.
There was,
So they're
they're all
off
over.
site, they're off campus?
Yes.
Okay,
I got to take a tour and they're in tough shape,
yeah, okay.
but the structure itself is sound and the footings are still good.
And
So the shed
and the
hasn't
irrigation
shifted,
is.
and the inside's perfectly fine, the
Okay.
pumps and everything, he's done a very good job upkeeping.
Woodpeckers have gotten to a lot of them. There's just a lot of,
Yeah, a lot of moss growth on the roof.
Okay, cool.
So our ARPA projects that we got done in fiscal 24, we had a little less than 400,000. And here are a list of some of the items that we got done with that money. And I don't know if you noticed, but most of this is things that we were gonna have to do no matter what. The fire alarm panel at the police department, it croaked. We had to replace it, we were gonna have to replace it no matter what. We have roof repairs that we're gonna have to do, gotta repair, so this list, it's a little unfortunate that we got all this free money and we had to invest it in things that we should be already doing on a daily basis.
so somehow we have to find ongoing, right, Katie, ongoing. So these items have been corrected, 2024,
Mhm.
right? But somehow we need to get funding, right, a strategic plan for funding going forward for things that will need to be maintained, right? And not deferred, right? And that has to be found in your operating budget.
So these should not have been any capital, these should have just been operating under.
No,
department
and
maintenance.
these were all, none of these were capital.
This is all.
None of it should have, even if it
Should've,
was, it never
yes.
should have.
No, I would have never brought any of the items that were here to capital.
Okay,
It's the cost of doing business.
So the next couple of slides here are our highlights that are coming up. My proposed operating budget is $1,089,019. I would like to increase the budget by 60% to improve the daily operations and catch up on deferred maintenance. This would also include an on-call engineer, increase staffing for increased productivity. Let's jump
So
into,
excuse me, the 1,089,119 is a 60% increase?
yeah, it's 59.56.
So what was your budget last year?
We're gonna get to that, but it was 500 and something thousand, but it's on the next slide.
Last year was,
In FY 24, I'm looking at 496, 314, so I'm talking about that.
I have a hard copy right here.
Can I clarify something?
Yes, please.
I think what we mean to say for the 60% increase is just on one of the line items, which is the general property repairs and maintenance. We're asking, if I
Yes.
remember correctly. So let's go through the line items. We may need to put a 1 in front of that 60.
well,
We're getting into it, cause the next slides all
I
have
don't
to do
wanna
with the
divert
budget.
you, I don't wanna divert you. Keep going.
So this is to go over our current equipment and where we are in the state. So what I did was I took some of the big use buildings. And I looked up when they were built, how old is the equipment, took the manufacturer's make, model, serial number, looked it up. And then looked up any history I could on the equipment, how much we've invested in that equipment. So these are the years that the buildings were built. And this is the current age. Anything highlighted in red, yellow means that it's already at its end of life or past its end of life.
Well, that's not good.
It's good to be more proactive than reactive, isn't it?
We'll get there. Some fun facts about our facilities department in the town. In the 2019 master plan, the residents stated that a well-maintained public infrastructure is the most important to them. In the 2000 master plan, a planning for long-term maintenance needs was mentioned in the report. In 2013, capital assessment for 2 school buildings. Immediate repairs, so they phase it, immediate priority 1, 2, 3, 4. Immediate repairs in 2013 cost at that time $532,000. Of these $532,000, $184,000 of those items were addressed that I am aware of. The rest either remain or have been pushed off. In 2012, a library assessment was done on the free library. And in the assessment, it says systems are starting to show signs of wear and age.
HVAC systems are,
Yes, the focus of that report was HVAC systems.
okay,
In
And
1990,
we have put money into the HVAC system up there over the last few years, haven't we?
mhm.
At the library, I mean, and including what you're looking for now, so is that inclusive of the work we have done?
that from anything where
You don't know.
I don't know, so the systems up there are the original systems that I've seen. The units in the spaces, in the library spaces, they need to be replaced, we have a quote for that.
Okay,
We're at end of life everywhere at the library.
okay,
I think what Brian did was he introduced a notification system, so if things went.
Yeah, we have that, and we've expanded on that.
I think that's what he did pretty much.
He did a BMS system, so a
Yeah.
building management system, so that's completely separate, that's the controls piece that I was talking about earlier.
Okay,
And then in 1997, we had a survey of all of the buildings in town. And numerous maintenance and capital needs were listed of the property. My point of this fact sheet is we keep paying engineers and people to tell us that we need to spend money on maintenance, yet we just use it and to leave on our bookshelf. And now is the time that you need to start reacting and taking it real, otherwise we're gonna keep throwing money down the drain. So my mandated expenses, this is a percentage of what I spend every single year, for annual required, maintenance. Look at my sheet.
So this is after you spent this mandated expense that you
This is
figured.
Or I fixed a faucet, a toilet, a ceiling tile, a roof leak. This is walking in the door on January first. This is what I spend every single year in these departments.
What does that add up to?
That adds up to $293,624.
300,000.
And for that line item, my budget is much less.
Talk to us a little bit about, you had said that you wanted to have an engineer on call. What is that, what is that? Couple? See, but we're in cahoots though, we're having the same thoughts, that's a plus.
So our house doctor, our on-call engineer, so this is at no cost to the town. And it would be to have a doctor, to have an engineer, architect, and of our choice at hand, whenever we need, for any of the projects. And it gets us around having to go out to bid for a new contractor and somebody that we're comfortable with. And that they know the history of Duxbury, they've worked in town. There's lots of,
So what I was trying to ask before is how do you accomplish that?
we put out an RFQ.
So we pay them to be on.
We would still have to pay them, but we don't have to pay them to be on call. If we use them and use their services, we would have to pay them.
Okay, so they don't get a retainer,
The only thing it does is it speeds up the process,
no retainer.
no retainer.
There's no master service agreement, yearly service agreement or anything of
No,
that
you can
nature.
keep them for 6 years. You can have one house doctor, you can have 5 house doctors, you can have a whole handful of engineers on your staff. And you call them and you can say, I want a proposal to check out the roof at senior center, and they'll come right out.
So this sounds like something you've done in other places.
Yes,
And we haven't, I mean, we must have the same people that we kind of. vet
no,
people.
Mary, I was talking to Mary earlier, and DPW uses something very similar.
Okay, wouldn't it be the same people kind of sort of more or
Yeah.
less sometimes?
So if I can, so with water and sewer departments, this is very common. Communities will go out and issue an RFQ request for qualifications. Because you're purchasing or you're engaging a company that provides services as opposed to purchasing a product. And the idea behind it is that you vet all of the respondents and you select a firm that you want to engage in a relationship with. And those relationships are typically long-term relationships because you want to find engineers who can work well with you and get to know our facilities and our mechanical systems and become our in-house experts. And in doing so, Chapter 30B allows you to utilize that RFQ process as the proper procurement that's required to engage an engineer. So every time that Katie has to do a project that requires some engineering services, she would not have to go out and issue an RFP to hire the engineer to do those services, that we would use this existing firm as our in-house engineer firm that has already been vetted through the RFQ process. So it's the proper procurement and establishment of that relationship. But then when Katie has a project to do, and we'll use the library chiller, for example, that's going to require some design and engineering for the project. So she would then call this firm that we have this relationship with, and that firm would provide the engineering services. We would pay for those engineering services when they're rendered, but we don't have to pay to have a relationship with them.
Got it.
And would we have, in the budget, would we have money set aside for this doctor?
Or these services?
So it would be part of so it depends on what she needs to utilize them for. So remember that the idea is that we're trying to right size this budget so that she's able to do some of these projects more effectively and more quickly. But oftentimes, and some of the projects may be smaller in scope, so if the operating budget was sized appropriately, she would be able to use the existing operating budget to do both the engineering component and then the purchase and installation of the products. But for larger projects that are larger capital investments, the idea could be that she would have funding available in her operating budget to do the engineering, but then have that engineering and a proper price proposal to bring forward to fiscal advisory for a capital investment.
So what was the formula to get to? To get to that operational support? Was it a percentage of your total budget, operational budget? Setting aside anything that's capital request.
Will we see that when we see the line item budget?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Currently, my budget allows for less than $1,000 per building for repairs.
Oh, mother.
So at the town hall, when I first started, there was a foot hole, a size of a foot hole in the door that leads into the boiler room. And that door cost to replace the door was $3,500. So I'm already over my budget at the town hall. There's been a 5 to 10% annual increase in outside contractors' pay rates.
Can I ask, is there a percentage of the value of the building that should be put aside for this type of thing? Is there a formula in your industry? That was my-
No, so I had asked, you guys had asked me that at a prior meeting, and I had
Because I
asked
wanted
a
an easy
couple of
answer.
engineers. And they said you can't really give a square footage value per building, each building is different, has different technologies, has
Yeah.
different ages, different stages. We're not consistently in facilities asking for a certain amount of capital, we're not investing in certain.
So there is
going in
no
a certain
formulaic
direction.
answer, is
So you
what you're
can't.
saying. Okay, thank you.
There's been a 5 to 10% annual increase in outside contractors' rates of pay over the past 5 years. There's been an additional 30 to 40% increase in materials in the past 5 years. There has been a 9% increase in the facilities operating budget in over the last 5 years, which breaks down to less than 2%. Why increase the staffing? Right now, I am doing my best to look for grants and I'm directing, or training Dave on how to find grants.
Mhm.
But that takes time and it's more like, hey, Dave, here's a 10-minute training on how to find this grant. I gotta go. We're not utilizing me to what we could. And we're not getting the amount of work done with our staff because it's a one-man show, really. So these were some of the breakdowns on why we should increase our staffing. And then here is our budget.
Well, I have your spreadsheet up, your line by line spreadsheet from ClearGov.
Look at how you were gonna do that.
I think you have to go to an attachment.
Yeah, you do. That's where I am. So if this is downloaded, so if I go back here, see how Katie has attached this?
I mean,
No, the Mary's attachment. Click on Mary's.
This one,
Yeah.
thank you, Mary's attachment here. So if you go over to the
paperclip?
well. You just wanna work with mine,
Yeah, let me just peek at yours and you can show me later.
that's just easier, and then I'll show you how to do it later.
Yep, perfect.
So.
Go. Sorry.
So our real needs, for salaries, this would include, a maintenance manager, a working maintenance manager and an assistant, admin assistant. I took the overtime, so right now we are like 7,500. And so what I did was I broke that down per hours.
Mhm.
And then I took, so the current is 72 hours per person, or $3,500 per person annually. And so I added in the extra maintenance person, and I came up with 95 hours per employee on overtime. Clothing allowance is a contracted rate. Maintenance vehicles, this was a question that kept getting thrown at me. My vehicle is not the best vehicle in the world, but it drives and it gets us around.
And
It's
there's no
fine.
It's not your personal vehicle, it's a town vehicle.
town vehicle.
Okay.
And there's
and
no
the vehi-
carbon monoxide in it.
Huh?
There's no carbon monoxide in it.
No, it's been fixed. It was fixed before I took it over. And then there was a van that was in question. And that the tires were gonna fall off or something. We have since fixed that. And I don't see any issues with either. Do I think that we're gonna need a vehicle? Like I left the vehicle I drive. I left it in there because, yeah, it's gonna need to be replaced. But we're not seeing the repairs that we should,
Okay,
if we need.
so
them
they're
right now.
functional, is what you're
Yes.
saying.
We run.
At this moment in time, they are functional.
Yeah.
Okay,
The building and grounds maintenance service line item, which is 228 right now. I would like to increase it to 610. That takes my day-to-day operations, what I have to spend on elevator inspections and fire safety, subtracts that. And that's how I came up with that number. And then waste removal, I don't know why we had a $4,600 number for there, because we spent the $7,148 is what we spend every year to pump out any in-ground tanks. Any of the grease traps, like that's the actual number. I don't know if maybe they didn't reevaluate it as things moved.
does the
but
town pay for that, not the schools? Cause I'm assuming it's from the kitchen at the.
The
kitchens at-
schools pay for
yeah,
the school's kitchen, grease
Okay.
traps, we
Okay.
pay for ours, we pay for all of our in-ground tanks,
Okay,
meaning the town. So the engineering services we have a lot to do.
Is that the doctor?
So no, this would be if we needed engineering services this would help us start. We have a lot to do and have a lot of engineers that we're gonna need, a lot of engineers help. So at least we have a line item to cover some of the expenses for engineers services.
That's about 3 days, isn't it?
These are for smaller jobs, I'm thinking.
Okay.
and that's why you need to have them on tap, the doctors, so they'll do short jobs for you.
So is that? I'm lost to someplace stating, so it's the 8,000. For the,
Not for the house doctor, that is for me to get the engineer here. And the engineer to do some work. They're gonna be able, with $8,000, it's a smaller project, one job.
but it would
Yeah.
be the whoever we had the agreement with from the RFQ,
Yep,
right?
yep.
That we would be using the same resource
Yep,
to do that engineering work.
yeah, and the idea of the house doctor, I should have just left out, because
Okay,
we don't have any financial responsibility. It's a way of, with that house doctor, that doesn't affect the town at all, it just makes the procurement of the person quicker and easier.
right, 'cause you don't have to go out to bid, and I did read up on it, Rainey had sent the article.
Yeah.
So I do understand, but I just wanna make sure I had. it
But there's
correct
some
in my-
hours and some wage and time it's doing.
Excuse me, but is $8,000 enough? I mean, if we're gonna ask for something. I don't
Well,
think, in my experience, I don't think the $8,000 is enough.
You could spend that before breakfast.
I have.
but if we had a budget, building and ground services budget, that that is my point, so the 8,000 is more like. I don't know, a smaller project.
Okay,
So you go in from 450 to 610 JR in building and maintenance, so that should cover the big stuff, is that the thought process?
We're going from 228,
Pardon me, yes, 228 to the 610, I'm sorry, I jumped over
so
that.
some of that would have to be engineering, some of that would be, some of that would be larger bigger
So
projects.
this is just a line item to cover small jobs that come up in the course of business?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So you could get to the place where you could do different maintenance, and this would be the regular order
Yes.
of business, right?
Yes,
And the big bump in the building and maintenance would get you back to,
eventually get me back to where I should be.
we should be, okay, all right, and that's the maintenance. Item at the 8,000, okay.
Yeah. Training would stay the same. Telephone, so the telephone, I found out
We
I-
would use it,
something about the school, the town used to
Doesn't matter.
pay for a phone. Anyway, we don't use it anymore. We haven't used it in 10 years.
and there's gonna be some kind of cell phone study.
Uh. Office computer supplies, I added to $200. So I can sign documents. Building and grounds, maintenance supplies, I took. What we have right now and I timesed it by 2 because we're gonna see an increase in that number if we have more employees. When we're getting more work done, we can buy more materials. Uniforms, I increased it because of the increase in employees. And membership and dues stays the same.
Got
Any questions?
it. So many.
No,
Can I ask you a question? I noticed when we had gotten a preview of the budget presentation for the schools, and I noticed they had $125,000 for facilities. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, so they fund, I have 2 separate accounts. So this is all town only, except for, is there anything here? The salary and wages is a crossover.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just making sure I'm not losing anything.
So-
And the uniforms, I guess you could say was a crossover, but they actually fund more money for uniforms.
yeah, it's de minimis anyway.
But
But what about
it's
the,
nothing.
what about? Okay, so building and grounds, no. That's not school. So
Maintenance.
let's just say it's salaries and wages, that there's some.
Salaries and wages.
So
is
what's their 125 from, for?
the. Grease traps, I mean, I can pull the account and see what's in there, but it would be any of their waste, any of their fire alarms, any of their electrical, any of their plumbing. Any of their roof repairs.
Elevators.
So are they
Elevators.
asking for extra 125, or is it just all you get is 125 for that?
I would have to look at it, I'm not 100% sure. We did talk. And I told her I wanted a lot more than I know she asked.
Mhm. Yeah.
But, I can look at it and get that too.
Whether it's an increase or whether that's the total budget.
You're looking for
So-
the true up?
So this
Yeah.
is for the town buildings,
Mhm.
and will any of this be used in the school buildings?
The only thing that would get used is salaries,
Okay,
vehicle maintenance, I guess you could essentially say.
part of it, yeah, to get.
And clothing and uniforms, that's it.
So they
Nothing
carry,
else.
they carry the rest of it in their budget.
So they carry.
Theirs.
How much does the school carry for?
I don't know, that's what I was trying to ask,
Okay.
trying to figure out this 125, is it in addition, which it was perfectly legit, I'm not saying it's.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
questioning.
They're gonna be
No,
the school
uh,
on Thursday, so we'll be able to answer that question on Thursday.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay,
I just didn't know if Katie knew off the top of her head, that's all.
so. Kate, that's the 1,900,000 or what,
Yeah.
1,990,000. Compared to 254,000, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, no, 543.
Nope. I'm gonna jump in for a second. So there's the numbers at the bottom, the grand totals are off slightly. I think Katie and I may have tweaked some numbers, and prematurely, but in any event, the $1 million includes the request for 2 new positions.
Mhm.
So there's a big difference there. So if we're trying to talk about the increase for the actual expenses that would be attributable to fixing things, buying parts and services. The increase for that is Katie's ask, her option 2 request. The increase for that is 306,000.
So, the spreadsheet, Mary, that you attached, there's a little bit of change to that.
There is.
Okay,
All right,
then we have the 59.15%.
Well, I mean, none of us are surprised. I'm not surprised.
it's
Anybody
not,
else?
it's nice to see a number and it kind of makes sense.
Huh?
It, you know,
Nice to see a number that actually might get something
might
done.
work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we're not, look at our faces, no surprise there. I mean, we hope we have, but. Anybody, however, sorry about that traffic.
Yeah,
Um,
just for empirical data, going from the current budget FY 25, I'm sorry, I should probably jump on here. Going from the current budget FY 25, her current budget is 646,000. And the ask is 1,118,000. That's a $471,000 increase, which is in her budget a 73% increase. The bulk of that is the proposed addition of 2 new staff members. One would be a maintenance technician and the other would be administrative. And increasing that general property repairs line from the current 328,000 up to 610.
Is the third parties that we hire, right? And that, you know, something has to get fixed and we don't have an internal person do it. Where is that buried in the existing budget? Or where is that shown?
In the existing budget? Is that what you're asking?
It's not, so, we
Right.
have to hire, an HVAC guy, or we have to hire an air conditioning guy, or we have to hire an electrician. Where does that money come from in the budget?
Right now, in the facilities budget, it would come from the property repairs and maintenance line. Or,
Which is,
or it would come from a reserve fund transfer, or it would come from a capital request. But if they were looking to do something during the year within budget, it would come out of the property repairs and maintenance line.
So,
I guess
So
I
building
just.
and grounds.
It's building the
Maintenance
grounds,
services.
So it's not coming from your budget, it's coming from another budget?
No,
I
it's
don't-
right there, building and grounds
So-
maintenance service.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mary.
The line item is 5245.
Which is 24,000?
Nope, it's $328,927.
So last year, we spent 400,000 with ARPA, we don't have ARPA. How are we covering that 400,000 in the 26 budget?
We're not.
So we haven't accomplished what we wanted to.
So,
then yet.
wait,
400,000 did a lot to get us
Can I-
forward.
share my screen.
Yes, please.
Okay, I don't know how though. Oh, here it is. Request. Did you request, Linda?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, can you guys see my spreadsheet?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're looking at ourselves.
Oh, all right, let me try that again. Hang on.
Sean's gonna tell you to look for the 3 dots.
There's a green, oh, here we go. There's a green button. Share that window. Okay. Nope, I'm gonna try it one other way because it's always too small.
You can't read it, but there you go.
Hang on, I'm gonna try to make it bigger.
Okay.
Better?
No,
Wrong way.
It
That's
got
smaller.
smaller.
That's smaller. Okay, hang on. Let me try that. I'll flip back. All right.
or that the bottom slide bar there thing, on the bottom right.
Okay. All right, can you see?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better. Thank you.
So this is what we're talking about right here, these line items, excuse me, the facilities department. This column right here is her current budget. that I'll highlight in blue. So this is the current budget. This is current staffing. And this is current expenses for a total of 646,572. Option number 1 is the 794,727.
Got it?
Okay. Which is an increase of 148,000. Which equates to 23%. Option number 2 includes. So
And that does not include any new employees?
That's the old figure.
2, this one here includes new employees in this number. It also includes an increase to the overtime so that the staff can work additional hours in order to complete some of the projects. And then it includes the ask of 610 on this property repairs and maintenance line for a grand total of 1.1 million. That equates to a $471,000 increase in total, or 73%.
Okay.
Does that make
Wow.
sense now?
But Katie feels special to be the lucky winner with the biggest
I
ass.
did not want to break that.
Actually, hers is not the biggest ask, but it's pretty close.
I think here's my question. So we spent the 380,000 ARPA money, right? So we now kind of go back to zero. Check, that's done. And now that is on a maintenance schedule, right? So in our,
But that didn't complete everything we
No.
needed to do.
that's correct.
Yeah,
So. Can I?
yep, all right, fine, finish your thought, it's refreshing, yeah.
It's getting scary when we can complete each other's sentences.
Yeah, okay.
So the question is just that. So of the repairs or the maintenance that we didn't do with the ARPA money, what's left over and is that left over in this budget?
Oh, God, no. She's good. She's good.
Some, but no, I mean,
So,
Spent,
so the question that I have is. Where's the leftover list, right? And I'm assuming that it's been prioritized for what we need to do immediately, and some of this immediate work is in this budget, the $1.1 million budget, okay? So the,
I don't think Katie's doing this as a leftover list, I think she's just creating a list.
yeah, I'm doing safety.
She's just trying to keep her head above water. That's it.
trying to do is get out of this, the reactive, keep our head above the water mode to say, what does it actually cost to support facilities
To keep up.
Would say we're not there yet. We cannot make that assessment because we've now experienced years worth of deferred maintenance.
For a year, right?
Yeah,
So Katie, you're just trying to
I just
get us
wanna,
to, you're trying to get us to
It's a
baseline,
good
Yes.
start. It's a good start.
yes. And I think that that's important when we discuss
I think
this,
that
and
that's-
and when we're making the request, that this gets us to baseline. This is not
It doesn't
this
get
is
to
not
baseline.
improves, this just gets
Yeah.
us to where we should be, and that in the future. There will be additional asks to get us to where we need to be.
But am I hearing that this gets us to baseline? I don't think I'm hearing that this
Okay,
gets us to
okay.
baseline, that's my point. What I'm
this
hearing is
gets a
that
good start.
it gets a good start, and that's the message that has to be conveyed, right? That this is a good start that will remediate X percentage of our immediate needs, right? But we need to plan in our future and anticipate in our future potential increases to the facilities budget in order to get to the proactive, right, territory as opposed to getting out of reactive, because we're still in reactive. Right, that's my point.
I know what you're saying, but I don't think they're saying it's because it's not reactive, it's well beyond that, it's just things we haven't done that we should have.
I don't wanna go there, I'm just trying to get to where, so we know we know it has.
All right,
happened
Frank's
in the
losing his
past.
mind, we pushed him over the edge, he's done,
We are doing the best we can in the environment that we're in.
yes,
We
exactly
can't
right.
fix it to the
Right.
extent that it should be fixed, because that's an impossible.
Take the million and run.
We're doing the best we can to get her closer.
Right.
And I think she'll be pleased to have as much as, if we can get this budget for her. she'll be busy trying to keep up with it.
Well, that's exactly, that was gonna be my
So,
next
I'm
point.
okay
She
with
doesn't have the staff or the resources to do more than this anyway.
Right,
As Susie citizen, I'm going to be asking myself. Right? How did we get here?
How
Right,
did
and
we
you-
get here or how do we?
I'm just planning this out, okay,
Okay.
please bear with me.
Mhm.
And is this enough? Is this big increase enough, and will we see more increases like this in our future?
yes,
And the answer is yes.
That should be a fairly strong message.
Mhm.
Is my point, not just looking at the trend line that we can anticipate in order to.
Okay.
We don't want to create the illusion that this fixes anything.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my,
And- and
that's
that-
my
and I
point,
think
why am
that's
I not
fair.
communicating that?
I don't know,
You
I
are,
you caught
you
my
are, you are.
disease.
Yeah, well, I,
Let's
yeah,
go on.
Huh?
Took them long.
I think we're done.
Yeah,
okay. That is my point.
Yeah.
yeah.
This is not the solve.
you're welcome, I just emailed you that too.
Thank you.
You know,
Katie, thank you. 2 nights doing this is not as much fun as you've had, but, yeah.
That's been, thank you. Good one.
Thanks.
You got my vote.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh, Katie, thank you.
You're welcome.
we're happy you're here.
Me too.
Katie's been kicking butt on our lists. I just have to give her kudos whenever I can,
Everybody
because
says the same thing.
we've had lists for a few years that haven't been touched, and you knocked them out in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
2.5 weeks? We had 3 years of lists
I know,
in schools.
I know, and that's,
She's
and that's, that is the kind of thing, recognition we need to also,
Yeah,
you know,
it's just incredibly
Give you-
responsible. I just have to say it, because we never get that kind of feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Our jobs.
Well, we've heard that from everybody she's dealt with.
Yeah.
As we go to all the department heads and they're like, Katie, and they're. We've seen her.
So the reality of that, right? I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about these things, but, you know, you get
Never
someone
stopped
like
you before,
that.
Jim.
And you never want somebody, I know, but you never wanna burn someone out like that and give them the resources so they can
Yeah.
do their job.
well, and that's what
And
we've
that's
done
what
in the
she's done.
past. I mean, that's clearly what we've done in the past, and we should change that behavior.
Okay.
Enough said.
All right, JR's gonna get mad, friends, rubbing his head, we gotta move.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Have a good night.
All
Thanks.
that's good.
Good luck.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
Jim,
we just spent all the money.
Jim, go home.
I'll see you guys later then. Am I up next or is it?
You are, no,
Yes,
but you're sitting here, so that would
That's good.
make me think, sure.
I did not bring a laptop for this. Someone can just throw this little presentation on there.
All right.
It's only like,
Is it
6
in
pages.
ClearGov?
It is not, it's just a PowerPoint.
Okay,
Kind of simple, few pages.
when, will you do me a favor, Linda, will you download that and email that to everybody?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's just gonna come up, I think it says,
Not a virus.
FY 26
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Virus on that, is it?
We gotta get.
No, it's pretty
Get
clean.
the money, it's good.
Someone requested that I give the biggest spreadsheet I could make last year, so I printed out a copy for everyone. Okay.
Thank you.
That's the end of the presentation, so
I bet Ted's jealous of
add
you.
myself to that.
Big print, big print.
Sorry, Mike, be helpful. All this is the comparison between the level budget and then the ask.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Would you like a copy of this? Thank you.
Is this, oh, you're doing a PowerPoint, okay, got it.
Yeah, basic PowerPoint. I just wanted to just, I don't know if there were new people here or not, but this is kind of a little bit
It's
of a
people,
repeat.
but people are watching it too, or people can watch it,
Okay,
so.
can you put that in the,
Presentation mode.
thank you, thank you. So here we are, FY 2026 budget review, municipal services, which includes building department, health department. We process all the shellfishing permitting and we have weights and measures. We also process liquor licensing and things like that through our department as far as an administrative aspect of that. and you can go on to the next. I can run through these quick because they're kind of standard stuff. This is just a little bit more refined vision that we have for the mission statement in our department. That I can read aloud, if you like, or
Nope.
read yourself.
We can just keep going.
It just kind of summarizes the main goals that I have for running the department. I've had many experiences as a builder. In other town departments, and I gotta commend all my staff because we really try and do a good job to be there for people and have excellent customer service. Now, some might not agree with that, but that's okay. We do the best we can. Next slide, please. These are the services that are provided through the Department for Public Safety and Health. You can't read that so good, but
It's just
made it a little bigger. It just kind of gives you a basic idea of all the things, residential, commercial building permits. We've got online permitting system that we use, which has been incredibly helpful. Zoning assistance and code compliance assistance we do. We have state required inspections for all assembly spaces, restaurants, churches, schools, senior center. Those are annually required inspections. Zoning board of appeals, administrative processing we do. A lot of meetings that I have with that. All the records keeping that we have, complaint, investigations. Shellfish licensing, alcohol license renewals and processing, all runs through our department. Septic installations and repair, permits and inspections, Title V reports we process. Keeping of animal permits, farmers market permits. Percolation test inspections, permit review for compliance with Title V. We're processing 40Bs in my department, because that runs through my department after I become the all encompassing aspect of that. Once the ZBA approves these 40Bs, so all that, the planning is not involved in 40Bs, it's all held within my department and my purview once that comprehensive permit is issued. They're a lot of work. We also do that, we do licensing for the town for septic installers and haulers and waste disposal. Public health information that needs to go out, beach testing. And health crisis stuff that we have to deal with. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of everything that we handle in the department. Next slide, please. So we do that with 6 full-time employees, 4 part-time employees, and we have 4 alternate inspectors. 2 alternate inspectors on the plumbing side and 2 alternate inspectors for electrical. And those are errors needed if, you know, our part-time inspectors need to take some time off or whatever it might be. The full-time employees, myself, the Director of Municipal Services, we have a health agent. We have an office manager, an office administrative support in the building side. CBA administrative assistant is also a health inspector. It's kind of a unique hybrid.
Is that the woman that we had
Lauren,
hired? Yeah,
yeah.
Lauren, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and she was stepped in recently as the interim health agent and carried all 3 functions and did an excellent job. And then we have a full-time building inspector, and for once, for me being in front of you, I actually have my top part-time building inspector filled, which is incredibly awesome. So we're onboarding him and getting him up to speed and training. That's a part-time position. We have the Board of Health administrative assistant, the part-time building inspector, my electrical and plumbing inspectors are part-time, public health nurse is part-time. Keeping of animals inspector, that's Eddie Ramos, does functions for rabies testing and barn inspections.
So it's part of his salary paid through your,
Yeah,
through
it's
your
a very
department?
small amount.
Okay,
If you recall, last year, we changed the stipend because we
Yep.
looked at it over a period of time.
Yep.
And then sealer weights and measures is through our department as well.
okay.
Next page, so you can't really read this, but it maybe helps
That's your
people in the
handout.
audience.
It's the handout, right?
We got the big handout, there you go. I thought the handout might be helpful here.
It is.
Big print, we love
Thank
it.
you.
So I tried, I couldn't print it out on a huge font.
No.
So the first page here with the red, highlighted red is. I understood this, that we're to take a look at all our line items. And add a 2% increase on the salaries and wages is what I did, and then across the board and. and my-
Mary, he listened to you.
I think I did.
Fantastic.
The only thing I didn't listen to, and I got a little wrong, and I found this out, but I didn't change it, was that, I just added a 2.5% increase on all the other items.
Yes, that was not the.
That was
instruction.
wrong.
That was wrong.
That was
I
bad.
learned that was bad,
That was bad.
but it wasn't all that bad,
Um,
but I did find out that I didn't interpret that correctly.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
well, let me ask you this. I mean, you owned up to it, it's in here.
Yeah,
How does that relate to what you actually think it's going to cost next year?
it's right on the next page.
So this is not, even if on a level funded budget, some of these numbers would be incorrect. As
Yes,
to like, one
Yeah,
of the
like-
examples, if you had a dumpster that you had a contract for and it was going up by $300, you can't short it $300 because that's what it's gonna cost.
exactly. Most of my costs in my department are. They're hard costs. I mean, they
They're
are,
fairly flat though.
they're really flat. There's only one real line item that I'm asking for, which I'll get to.
Yep, okay, go
In
ahead, I'll
there.
stop talking.
So
Right.
I could have probably. My understanding was to represent what a 2.5% increase would be as a bottom line item.
Mhm.
Compared it to what my ask is. And so if you look on the total budget is 732, 715. And then the ask is 741, 194. So it's higher than the 2.5%.
Mhm.
Now. What I did here, and so. Someone had asked if I could summarize, kind of like Steve Dunn does with his memo. And I started to do that, but what I do is I try to use the note function in ClearGov and I
This
put
is-
it all
this-
right there.
This is fine.
I think this is kind of clean and easy to understand it. And I can run through, so salaries, we were just asked to add a 2% increase to that for budgeting purposes. My fund for alternate inspectors, I looked at my FY 24, it was 4897. And asking 5,000, which is not really a change, it's just kind of flatline.
What is incorporated into intermittent and seasonal for you?
That has to do with anything beyond the normal scope. It could be emergencies, it could be my alternate inspectors, that's typically what that covers.
Okay,
And the emergencies are for the part-time, inspectors, salary, so it doesn't affect that at all for me. Or sometimes I can't make it, I gotta call my inspector there and.
Yep.
Most of the time, we try not to do that and just trade some hours instead of increasing the
and
budget.
is that driven with the amount of construction that's going on in town or
The intermittent seasonal, yes, it could be. It could be, the other thing that's kind of a factor here, and it's kind of an unavoidable factor, is that my part-time inspectors also are in the trades. So if they do work in town, the inspector won't work, we need to call in the alternate to do so.
okay,
So that, I kind of keep an eye on that to see if there's a huge increase in that. Because then I think that could be a problem, but I haven't seen a real big increase. More of that happens because, the inspector's got, he's taking some time off, he's getting.
so this is adequate is what?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
stipend,
stipend,
true that.
all right, so this doesn't necessarily have to include this, but. The stipend, that goes to the bond inspector, that's what we reevaluated last year and got that budget approved.
Mhm.
He had a stipend that was the same for like 17 years or 16 years. And so all I did is I just added 2%, which I guess we don't have a history of adding any increases to stipends,
Okay,
is my understanding. But I did that based on how I looked at it last year and said, well, it's a function that he has to do, should it be increased at a percentage, so we're not doing it every 17 years, analyzing it and saying, hey, this thing's never been looked at.
So you chewed up on it.
I try to keep it true as we move forward and take it in small bites and,
And there's your formula, your logic is in the notes. How many days?
oh, so that, let me speak to that, I'm talking about the stipend for the animal barn inspector.
Oh, okay, sorry, I got ahead of you.
The mileage stipend, I need to explain this one, so. The mileage stipend has been the same for as long as I've been here and even longer for a full-time person. $300 a month. Tax equates to about $240, which pays for fuel in my high users. So what I proposed is that I've talked to the other normal users in that stipend, and they're okay with the stipend as it is. The only one that I tried to equate, because I was listening to the fact that, you know, try and think of cost cutting measures and things like that. And I said, well, I either come to a capital budget request for a vehicle for my full-time inspector, which I think ultimately we should have. And I said, well, maybe I realistically gotta just take a look at his vehicle stipend and make that more equitable for him. So I tracked this for 6 months. Back when Scott was here, and I don't know if it was ever proposed to anyone, but I averaged about 35 miles a day. So in my notes here, what I did is I took out for vacations and holidays, the actual number of working days. It works out to be 8,015 miles, 67 cents a mile is the current federal rate. Annually, that totals $5,370. So instead of, for that one high-time user I have, my full-time building inspector, instead of giving him the $300 stipend, I'm asking, I rounded up to $450 a month.
just for that user.
Just for that one user, because it's a high user, he's in that car 4 to maybe 5, 6 hours a day.
Right,
Now, that's my ask. I
Sure.
think it's justified. I think it's cheaper than getting a new vehicle and fleet. I don't know, that's my rationale with that.
okay,
Reasonable.
Okay. It felt reasonable. It seemed like a good compromise in not increasing our fleet. Ultimately, I would love to have it because I talk about it every year that I think the perception for us showing up in an actual town car is way more credibility than coming in your own car and people are like, who's this pulling up to the job? Half the time they get to know the vehicle. So I called around to a couple other places, like I called Kingston, they're close by. They don't do stipends because they've got vehicles for both the commissioner and the inspector.
And it's a safety thing too, when you're showing up in a town car on site.
It totally is. I mean, it's a totally different presence than when, you know, I was in here as an inspector and using my own truck. And you go up, people don't know who you are. And then now when I show up in my car, they know exactly who I am when I'm pulling into the site, and there's just a different level of attention that happens. It's not intimidation or anything, it's just a different level of respect. and
It
professionalism.
legitimizes you.
Yeah, it totally does. So anyway, this is a compromise that I think, just because I heard about, you know, budget that's trying to reel us in, and I thought it was a good compromise.
Is there any way, Jim, I don't mean to sound corny, but you know, is there any way that there can be like a removable?
Yeah, they make magnets. We have them for, the health agents have them, on there for their
Would
cars.
that be a solution?
It could be. Here's the thing. If someone has a nice car, I don't know if you've ever had magnets on your car, it wears the paint off. It makes a very dull circle on your paint. All the biggest things.
Yeah, I don't wanna take, you know, be hurting somebody's
Yeah.
personal vehicle, but I just thought, is there another way to
You could,
identify the cars that would not require?
let's keep going though, because,
you could do that.
yeah,
It could be an option. And that's fairly short money that we could do that with. Public health services, This is just, it's just a hard cost. I don't have a lot. It's just what it is. Typically, historically, every single year since I've been in here and even 3 years prior, Stericycle, which people that don't know what that is, that's needle collection devices that we have. We're required to have these things at the fire station, and I think we have one at Atlantic Creek or something like that. But anyway, historically, they go up 5% every year. It's kind of a split year how it works, but it's 5% every year, and that's what that increase is there. Beach sampling, I look at that over a 3-year period. We only pay for the second beach sampling. I feel like a broken record because I say this every year. But if we take a beach sampling and it's been a heavy rain, we're gonna get typically, there's a few locations where we're gonna get a bad reading. And instead of closing the beach down, we go and we pay for another one out of this budget. So that hopefully we don't have to shut the beach down. And bailing up piping plover situation and people wanna get on the beach.
Yep.
So it's just, and it really, last year, I think we only had a few, but this is just a standard kind of thing that we carry to cover that.
Is this Duxbury Beach or is it?
All the beaches around town.
And when you say you've got a couple of typical spots, are you talking the in-bay beaches?
Yes. Yeah, so if we get a heavy rainstorm, and it's not every time, but typically, because of the heavy rain runoff from, the land, we'll get a bad sample.
Shipyard.
Shipyard Lane is
Cove.
one, Cove is one, Landing Road,
Mhm.
the other one. Yeah, so there's got a couple spots that we know that that's gonna happen. And, you can't control the weather and you can't control what it is, but usually if we sample the next day, tides come in and out and we usually get a good sample. I don't even think we had to close the beach down once last year. We did the year before.
This has got nothing to do with it, but it's probably the dog walkers,
Could be.
right?
Hey, I pick up
Runoff
all
from
mine.
fertilizer. Fertilizer. Runoff.
Yeah.
People's yards.
Yep.
Training?
All right, where are we? Next one?
Training, education.
Yeah, training, education,
Not much.
3,600, they didn't really change that. Telephone, they didn't really change that. Postage. All right, so the postage increase, I'll just talk about this quick. Last year, I have a small increase on the postage. I'm requesting 3,300. The reason being is, since we went to online, it's convenient and everything, and we're mailing out, shellfish permits, licenses. I actually stopped doing it for a couple months last year because we were just cresting at the edge of the budget that I had projected. And so we did get a lot of complaints about that. And so I'm just trying to cover the cost of what that is.
It's probably cheaper to mail them anyway than to have them come to the counter,
It can be. So,
time wise.
yeah, time wise, definitely, because they still. The process is basically someone applies for it online, they get a temporary paper license, we send them a hard license. We prepare it, we break that up with staff, we had a volunteer that did a tax write-off that was doing a great job for that. For us during that busy season, and so we prepare them all and then just mail them out versus them coming to the counter and interrupting the flow, so. It was kind of more beneficial, it helped us productivity wise, I get complaints every year about. When shellfish season is at its peak about, can't we put this somewhere else? I'm like, no, we're gonna keep it here, we got a system in place, it works. It's gonna stay.
Yep.
So, that's that, my advertising, that stays the same. Computer and office supplies, this is the one where I'm gonna ask for basically an increase of, 2.5%, which has to do with the ID cards and ribbons that we need to print the shellfish. And then I've got 4 tablets that I need to replace for my field inspectors. So I went out and I looked around and I was looking around the $450 mark for some tablets, but then it was suggested in my first round of this review that I reach out to Jim McKendy, amazing new guy we have on staff. He suggested that we get more of a rough type tablet, because we're field guys in construction sites. Instead of having to replace these when we drop them or break them, you know, there's ones that they make, and they're around $1,300 a piece. With a 3 to 5 year shelf life.
So why is this in operating? And not like Capital Light or something, if you're
That's a
buying
good
tablets?
question. I don't know that. It's just in my office computing support.
Okay. Mary, what do you think? Is buy tablets every year, it's not really operating, shouldn't it be in like Capital Light or something?
It can be in either. It's a small item that doesn't really move the dial here, but, it's this also, I think we've talked about this before. There is a need for us to have a line item in the budget, probably under the town manager's budget, that is one-time capital or equipment purchases, because there's no flexibility anywhere when we need to replace these things, or we encounter this situation and somebody needs some small device that wasn't
So
anticipated.
is this like the weed whacker problem?
Yep.
Okay,
There's our new classification.
Alright, so like next year when I go to budget this, obviously I'm not gonna budget for that because I won't need them. I've got brand new ones, but
but if
There's
it
no
breaks, you need to
flexibility.
be able
That's
to buy
assuming
one
you
if
get
something
these.
breaks.
right, assuming we're successful and we get them. We'd like to because we are on, they're almost 5 years old now and they're so incredibly slow in the field that a lot of times they're just coming in and making handouts and coming in and sitting at the computer and doing it, or my part-time guys are going back to their house and sitting on their own computer and doing it. It's just, they can't upload pictures, they're
Yep, okay.
they are. It just doesn't work. So anyway, it's a one-time request.
Mhm.
Subscriptions, publications, that's my flat fee that I deal with updated code books and things like that. We did purchase new code books last year. But we still have revolving plumbing and electrical code books that we have to buy from time to time, as well as other books that are associated with the health agents and the health department that just revolve in and out. It's just, whenever we adopt them, we have to upgrade them. So I carry that. That line item has been $2,000 for a long time. Uniforms and clothing, I'm asking for a slight increase on that of $200. To go piggyback on the idea that, the same thing with showing up to a site looking professional. You got guys that are showing up with, we got flannel shirts and things like that, and people don't know who we are, we get an ID tag. So I started in the last 2 years looking at like, hey, let's get some shirts, let's get some vests, so they know who we are when we show up to the job. It sets people at ease, especially when, contractors recognize us more, but homeowners don't recognize us. So I'm just trying to increase that professional presence for us. And, basically, these are the type of shirts that we're wearing. It looks a lot, you know who we are when we show up.
Mhm.
So it's a small increase that I'm asking there. Medical supplies, that's $100 budget we carry for a long time. It's like a first aid kit or something like that that someone might need for their car. We kind of keep those in there because we are on sites. We hardly ever even spend that, but it's just a line item that's there. Meetings and travel expenses, that's 6,500, that's the ask there. Currently, right now, in this budget, there's a multi-community grant that Lauren Hache is part of managing,
Mhm.
that paid for one of their conferences this year, which was $2,700, but that's awesome that grant did that, but those grants dry up and then all of a sudden, if I don't carry the budget for it, we may not have it later on. So it's pretty standard what I've got there for. And meetings and travel expenses, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, we are statutorily required to obtain continuing education credits, which involves us going to conferences and meetings and trainings and there's some travel associated with that too sometimes, some hotels and things like that. Not too much, typically once a year for each one of the disciplines. Dues and memberships. That's just the standard line item, like, we have to belong to organizations in order to get to our educational classes. It's kind of standard right there. And license renewals, that just has to do with the fees associated with, the state. For just to renew our licenses every 2 years, and they kind of, some are a year, some are 2 years, and they're in different cycles.
So I noticed that on the level fund, some of the numbers are higher than the
Yeah, you
requested.
rounded down on your.
You rounded down on.
Oh, my department requested?
Right.
That's because I misunderstood the idea of applying 2.5%. That's my fault on that, so,
Okay, so a little work needs to be, you want to make sure that it's accurate
yeah,
for what you're.
Well, if you get enough to do what you did
yeah,
initially, you're not asking for more.
right.
Right,
Which I can go back and change those numbers on this, for the ones that are level on that, but,
we're looking for accurate, we're looking to see what do you actually need. To kind of get away from the practice of, robbing Peter to pay Paul, we're not sending out shellfish licenses because you don't have any money left in the budget.
yeah.
What would it have cost to have completed that task in a more appropriate time frame?
I think the.
I know, that's not a
requested is
criticism.
What it is
Yeah,
what I have.
But that's the point.
The level, yeah, I misunderstood that.
No, that's okay.
That's on me.
Got the salary line on, right? That was
that
good,
was easy, they were same on the both, right?
that was good.
I tried to keep it as simple as I could this year for you, and this
Well, we're
really
simple
doesn't
people
change
here.
a whole lot for me.
Did a fine job.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I'm just gonna ask Linda, were you able to pop that out to us, this slide deck? Thank you.
That'd be great.
Oh,
And then
great. Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
just
Good
as
job.
far as what's going on in town goes, new projects, things that are, what are we looking at as far as new growth, number of permits pulled for new construction, just a synopsis of that?
So I'll give you a brief, I don't have numbers per se in my head that I could wrap.
No, just your
But a
general
a
impression.
general feel of it is that I definitely see a slowing trend in the permitting that we're doing. We're not insanely crazy like we were all through COVID and for 4 years, and that trend has been consistent with other towns. It's sort of flat. It's not, we're not sitting around wondering what we're gonna do with things. We got 40B projects, we got 2 underway right now.
What are the two that are underway?
That's Fieldstone Farms.
Is that the one on Lincoln?
Yeah, that's the one that's cleared near the Modoc Tower right there.
Yep,
And then the other one is Hollow Brook. That is, that they're beginning the clearing on that now.
where's that?
Lincoln Street also, Lincoln Street.
Okay,
It's a
Anyway,
first
that
line.
That one has, there are a bunch of 2, 3, and 4 unit townhouses in that one.
okay,
So that one's underway. We do have another one that was approved, but I haven't seen any action on that yet. That's North Street. I think we're familiar with that
Mhm.
one.
mm-hmm,
I haven't seen any action on that. I asked him when I seen him what's going on with that, and I haven't heard a lot. What I am kind of trying to anticipate is gonna happen is the new ADU law, the act that is gonna come into play February 2nd.
maybe tell people, because if people are listening on this ADU,
Should I talk to that about?
no, just what does ADU mean?
Accessory dwelling units. So the act basically, in an effort, this is what it's proposed as, in an effort to create more affordable housing. I'm gonna speak briefly on it, but there are still guidelines and everything that the state hasn't sent out about this. But what I know about it now is this, is that the act, as of right, not requiring a special permit come after February 2nd, allows for someone to build up to a 900 square foot accessory dwelling unit, or half the gross area of the house, the dwelling, whichever is smaller. So the biggest it can be is 900. You got a 2,000 square foot house, 900. You got a 1,000 square foot house, 500. As of right, no special permit. Setbacks still apply as far as we know now. council is currently looking to see if any conflicts are created within our bylaw. You still have to comply with Title V requirements. So as of right, you can do one of those. Neither the house nor, meaning the principal structure, or the accessory dwelling unit need to be owner occupied under this new law,
Oh,
which is very different than what the bylaw currently
Yeah.
is.
Mhm.
The act also says that somebody can request more than one accessory dwelling unit by special permit. I've talked a little bit about this, but currently, right now, our zoning bylaw doesn't have an avenue to approve that, so if somebody. The way we think it's gonna go is if somebody applies for more than one, I'm gonna deny it, send it to ZBA, and the ZBA doesn't have an avenue in our bylaw currently that will permit such a thing. That's being started to be worked on after last night's meeting, so.
Are they gonna be reclassified then to 2 families or 3 families?
Accessory dwelling unit
Just accessory
So,
dwelling, so
the
it's still a 101, but with an accessory unit.
with an accessory dwelling unit, so. There's a few things about this in the definition, so. The definition for an accessory dwelling unit in the act. I'm paraphrasing here, but it says that it's an accessory dwelling unit to a single family dwelling.
Mhm.
So if you have a multifamily dwelling, you can't apply for this. It doesn't meet the definition of an accessory dwelling unit. So therefore, the act doesn't seem to right now apply that someone could do that. Does that make sense to you?
But it can be rented, it can
They
be,
can be rented, either the house or the dwelling unit, or both could be rented out, not owner occupied. The act says that it doesn't permit short-term rentals.
well,
So we know that potentially that's gonna be an issue and concern, and I hope someday we address that in the zoning bylaw, because that is one of my toughest things to try and deal with.
mhm.
I know there's some going on in town, I get some notices out, but it's a tough leash to reel that one in. So that's one thing we see. You got a question?
does the accessory house have to have its own septic or you share septic?
You have to comply with Title V. So if the septic system is sized for such, yes, you may have to increase it, you may have to do,
So if you got 3 bedrooms in the main house and 1 bedroom in the accessory, and you've got a 4-bedroom system, you're okay.
potentially yes, no, because Title V doesn't really go off bedroom count. It includes a room count of the house.
Okay,
So the whole house looks at, as well as how many rooms are gonna be in the accessory dwelling unit. Another interesting thing is, real quick. The act does not limit the number of bedrooms that can be in the accessory dwelling unit, or the number of units, or number of rooms in that. So that's kind of interesting.
but the square footage,
Square footage could dictate that, and there's also another code that says minimum size of a room is 7 by 10, 70 square feet.
yeah,
You can't build a bunch of tiny little pods.
For the accessory, are they allowed to have their own kitchen?
Yes. All
It's a
living
dwelling unit,
quarters.
so you get everything.
You are required to create one parking spot for it. Unless you're close to an MBTA stop, which we are not, so,
so,
or some public, it says public transportation stop.
so is, and GATRA doesn't qualify.
We don't know. It's not-
So you've got an accessory apartment and all of that, fits in. And it doesn't change the code, but it is what it is, right? You just can do it. And they do these. What happens to the existing apartments that are all over town? Can they see if they qualify and then, come out of the shade, or?
Here's an interesting thing about that, and it's a really good question that is unclear right now. So, first of all, let me go back about one thing about the accessory dwelling unit. It can be attached or detached. So, in a scenario where someone has an accessory apartment, for those that aren't familiar around that. An accessory apartment is something that should have been, unless it was happened prior to our zoning. There were a few of those in town, not many. But it's a special permit process that up to 850 square feet had to be attached, and the house had to be owner occupied, or the accessory apartment had to be owner occupied. So that exists. So the idea or the concept of now turning that into an ADU, it's unclear what that means. And the other thing that's unclear about that, if somebody has. This is
Well, when
what
they
I-
go to sell it, they'd rather be out of the shade, because then it would be a plus. And if it's
Exactly.
been
Oh,
sitting there,
if they're the ones we don't know about,
well, in the shade, let's just say.
yeah, in the shade. It's an avenue that someone can convert that space into an accessory dwelling unit, provided that they stay within the area limits that the act is
So it would make it so that they wouldn't have to rip out the stove to pretend it's something else.
potentially, yeah, they just have to apply for it as an accessory dwelling unit. The interesting thing about this, someone comes to me to apply for this now, and I just talked this through with somebody. One of you guys comes to me and say, hey, I wanna build an accessory dwelling unit. I've got, 2,500, I wanna build a 900 square foot accessory dwelling unit. Okay, you need to now prove to me how much square footage you have in your house, so I need somebody to stamp a set of plans for me. Showing your floor plan, how many people have a floor plan of their house? Not too many, right? Unless it was built in the last, 20 years, maybe you do. But most don't, at the purchase or sale. So that's just gonna be another layer that we're gonna have to deal with. But that's a new thing that's coming down. And so there's another part of this that I don't wanna muddy the water a little bit, but
Yeah. We gotta kind of bring this to a
you
conclusion.
tell me when to stop, I'll stop.
Okay, you're done. And,
It's a big subject.
Yeah, no.
yeah, well, that's the fear.
You asked,
I did, and that was my fault, and Mary's gonna kill me, because she's gonna do the debt piece, and we're all tired from last night. And
Yes, we are.
we've got a meeting almost with 4 nights this week, so we're bad.
all right. Is it?
You'd be lucky, you did a great job.
And I appreciate it update on the ADU. I think it's-
I really did,
Yeah,
that
thanks.
was very interesting, and I'm sorry to have taken you down that rabbit hole, but it
It's
is.
okay.
It is important to know, because it will, if it does come out of the shade, it could impact the tax rolls and
Yeah,
whatever,
it's gonna,
and it's just better for everybody.
Well,
that'll get it out.
the overall concept is that it allows people to live in a house, because we have that scenario all the time. People come in, hey, I wanna live in my house, but I live in Florida most of the time, I want my kids to live in my house, how can I do that?
Yeah.
Here's a great avenue. And now you can rent it out, people can come to the community, buy a house and offset some of the costs of their house.
I wouldn't.
But that's the reality, that's how the act is proposed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what he meant, but.
The act is proposed that way, I didn't write that.
Yeah, I know,
I don't
Jim. I know, you don't write it, you don't write the law.
All right,
Am
Mayor,
I done?
yeah, you're done, you're done, you're going down, you're going down,
Going
you're,
down.
bye.
Don't forget your jacket.
Don't forget your coat, even though it's
It's,
not monogram, we're disappointed that you didn't have a monogram jacket.
I still want you to get me the white hook one of these days. Keep me from talking.
No, thank you, you were great, it was a lot of good information.
All right,
Mayor,
thank you all for all your volunteer work. It's amazing that you all do this, so have a good day.
Have a good night,
thank
Jim.
you, bye.
Take care.
Mayor, you had debt?
Jim, your topic is way more interesting than mine.
He's gone, he's gone, we just gave him the hook, oh no, he's
Good
coming.
night, Mary.
Good night. I was enthralled with that.
Oh, I'm so, I was thinking you probably wanted to have like 5 minutes to, yourself this week.
No
All
comment.
right.
I sent out an email. I'm just trying to open some documents here. I'm gonna go share my screen now.
right.
Use this. And let's see if that works. All right. I sent out an email just after 6 p.m. tonight. It included 4 attachments regarding debt service. They are not in ClearGov. So if you want to follow along electronically, hopefully you can see what I'm sharing on my screen. Otherwise, you should have it.
Yeah.
Which one, which
What you starting
which
on?
of the 4 are we starting with, Mary?
Hang on, I'm getting there. All right, I've given you 4 different schedules for 4 different purposes. The first one is the budget. The next one is a chart. this is the full debt model, and this is outstanding principal. I'm gonna start with the budget, which is this one, with the green band at the top. Can you see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so instead of burying the lead, I'm just gonna go right down to the bottom. That indicates that our debt service budget for the general fund for FY 26 is $6,536,407. That includes payments for long-term issued principal and interest, as well as payments on the bands that were issued earlier this year, back on May 1st. The vote that we took last night at town meeting is to pay the interest on the bands. The bands were for the DPW facility as well as for the seawall project. So the bottom line is that our debt budget for FY 26 is 6.5 million. So from that, I am now going to flip over to the chart. And I'm assuming you guys can see my screen. I can't see it from here.
Yes,
Okay. So
yes.
the chart up here. Okay. So what I've done is I have, and we're going to get to this next. Our debt is managed in this debt model. I have summarized this debt model into this chart for you so that you can see one row at a time what's happening with our debt across the various funds. So the first line is the general fund debt service that is within our levy. The next one is the general fund debt service that has been voter approved as exempt debt. The next one is water debt, then CPA, and then other. Other is an amount we carry in the budget for any bond issuance costs that may not be covered by a premium. And so it's a small amount for anything that we may encounter for a debt issuance. Shown below is a chart that illustrates what is happening, the trend that is happening with our debt. And I will point out to you, so this is the first column is the current year that we're in. And our debt service is 7.7 million. There will be a slight decrease in our debt service in FY 26, and then our debt service will increase year over year. So the reason that the debt service is going to start to increase year over year is we are starting to bring on the projects that had been previously authorized, which include the DPW facility, the seawall project. It also includes $1.3 million in facility upgrades for the school department, as well as a breaker truck for the fire department that you guys had authorized several years ago, and we are expecting that that's going to come online soon. We were hoping when the DPW project and the seawall project were being brought forward to town meeting, that both of those projects would have been well underway at this point, and that the debt service to pay for those projects would have actually come online beginning in FY 26, so as to smooth out our debt service payments. But as we know, the DPW project got delayed, significantly delayed from the original project timeline. And therefore that project is just getting underway now. So we won't be incurring any of the permanent financing until FY 27. But that's a pictorial view, if you will, of what's happening with our debt service. I'm going to flip over to our debt model, which is this one. Can you guys see this, a big yellow section?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this debt model includes every single piece of debt issued by the town. What we're looking at here is the long-term debt that had been permanently financed. And I started back in, I'm showing you an illustration that begins in FY 24, which was last fiscal year, because one of the things that's important to note when we start to look at debt models is when debt matures and rolls off of the books, it frees up capacity sometimes in the levy if that debt was within the levy, or you can see what happens to your excluded debt when you start to see those roll off. I will tell you that the shading in the blue represents the water department. Shading in yellow is excluded debt. And then shading in down the bottom here in this peach color is general fund debt that is within the levy. So the color coding does in fact mean something. And I'm sorry, was there a question?
No, I'm saying
Oh.
your color code always means something.
So you can see that we do have some debt that is starting to mature, which is great. We love when we pay those things off. So in FY25, I'm just going to jump to the bottom real quick here. I'm showing you that we are having at the end of FY25, the end of the fiscal year we're in right now, there will be $656,000 worth of debt service payments that will mature, meaning FY25 is the last time we will pay those. So that accounts for the dip that we're going to see in FY26. However, in FY26, we incurred temporary debt, bond anticipation notes, for those 3 projects that I mentioned. The interest payment will be due in FY26 for those 3 projects that are listed down here. And that will result in a net increase in our debt service of $330,000. Okay. So this is what's happening with our debt model. Now, what I want to do is I want to point out for you a couple of things as you start to look at this. So starting here in rows 96 and onward, this is me programming in the anticipated issuance of debt for these large scale construction projects that are just beginning. The debt will be issued in pieces or phases as we need it for cash flow purposes. We're not going to go out and issue the entire debt up front. We do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's arbitrage requirements that we need to make sure that we are avoiding. There is also the opportunity for us, given the current economic climate, to hopefully see some of our interest rates drop over the next 12 to 24 months. And I'd rather lock in at a lower interest rate than what we were seeing when we issued the bands back in May. There are also placeholders as you start to analyze this debt model. There are placeholders for some projects that we have not yet discussed that are programmed for outer years. They will start to become topics of conversation with the town fiscal advisory as well as finance committee and select board. And those include what, if anything, we are going to be doing about PFAS remediation, as well as the capping of the McNeil dump. So those are 2 very, very expensive projects that we have just started to begin conversations around, and we will be hearing more about those later. So in outer years, I'm programming in some small placeholders just for initial costs, but we won't know until a couple of years from now what the total cost of these projects like the McNeil dump capping are going to cost. So that's what's happening with our debt model. And then before I open it up to questions, I'm just going to flip over to my last chart, which in my previous experience, used to get asked the question all the time of how much debt do we have outstanding? So from when we talk about that, we talk about long-term debt only. So at the end of FY24, we had $52.7 million in total outstanding debt. And at the end of the fiscal year that we are currently in, we will have $47.4 million in total outstanding debt. That does not, and here's the breakdown between what's exempt and what's non-exempt. But that number is only the permanently financed debt. It does not include any of the new projects that we just talked about because none of those have been permanently financed yet. So with that being said, I'll now open it up to questions.
It doesn't include exempt, or does it?
It does include exempt. So here's the breakdown. This is the total.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Any questions?
That last chart you showed, is that included in the package you sent us?
Yes. Yep, I opened it up from the email that I sent out to you guys.
All right.
There were 4. There were
email.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it open on my phone, but I
Oh, I'm
wasn't on that
sorry.
page.
Oh,
That last one. Yeah, okay. Oh, I got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
you got it.
What's the yellow again, Mary? Sorry.
Yellow is excluded or exempt debt. Those terms are interchangeable. Those are the voter authorized exempt debt.
Okay.
Is there a legend on this?
So let me pull it up again. Hang on one second. You're looking at the full debt model, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if it's. Nope, I'm hiding it. In terms of Kathleen, just the colors, you mean?
Yeah.
Blue is water, the
Right.
color of water.
Yep.
Yellow is exempt.
Yeah.
Peach is non-exempt.
Got it.
And then purple is CPA.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see the P and I forgot what the peach was.
Oh, okay. Yep. So let's talk about the peach for a second, right? Because when you talk about debt, there's debt within the levy and then there's exempt debt. And there was a time years ago where the town was able to support much more debt within the levy. And without requiring, any kind of a debt exclusion or a capital exclusion. And we want to make sure that when we are seeing the debt within the levy come to maturity, we should always be replacing that with new debt so that we do not drop our ability or our capacity to pay for debt service within the levy. There always should be some portion of our budget that is used to support debt service and ongoing investment in our community and be able to support it with our operating revenues. So
And that's part of our recommendations, our guidelines for this,
Yes.
for finance.
Yes.
But we don't approach what we should carry for that.
exactly. So we do have recommendations and guidelines, but where we need to reevaluate where we stand with those. With respect to what's in the operating budget. So just pointing that out for you, because that's also something that I look at every year when we sit down and we analyze our debt model, and I work with our financial advisor to program out where we think we're going to have our debt issuances. And that's something that we as a community, as the finance committee and myself should be talking about every single year.
I think you have to say that again, Mary, because that's a very important point. You're saying that we have to maintain
Yeah.
a certain debt level.
Yep.
So people can go to town meeting and say, when are we ever gonna get out from under debt?
Never.
The answer is never.
Never.
Because we can't, because we would therefore no longer be investing in ourselves, in the town, in our property.
Yep. So
And the capacity to do it, and when we had to do it, would be gone.
right. Exactly. So think about it like Katie's budget, right? So if we are able to increase Katie's budget to handle property repairs and maintenance at, $500,000 a year. And we come to, and then we start to see some budget pressures, and each year we start to cut her budget more and more and more and get her back down to the 250,000 that she has today. We've lost that capacity because we're using it for something else. And it's the exact same thing here with debt. If we lose that capacity and we use that money for something else, it's very hard to free that back up and be able to pay for debt service. And given all of the buildings, 63 buildings, that's a lot. That's a big portfolio, right? And hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets. We want to make sure that we're always able to invest in that.
Well, if it ran off and the capacity was lowered, we would have to just go back and do an override to get it back up, correct?
Or a cut,
Exactly. That's-
run off on into operating,
Right.
then we want to incorporate it under the levy for debt service. We'd have to make the appropriate cuts to accommodate that.
Or an over-
If we haven't earmarked it, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
It should just be in excess capacity if we're not using it that year.
Correct, or if we're not using it that year, then we utilize that capacity to potentially address a reserve that we have so that we can free up free cash from having to replenish reserves. So there's a couple of options on how you can handle that.
But I think it's gonna become a more, it should become a more active conversation.
Yeah.
That this is on target, this is what we should be doing for debt. We are doing X, it should be Y, so therefore, this amount should be used for a purpose that will ensure that we have that capacity in the future.
I absolutely agree. I think we may all need to agree that for the next couple of years, while we're bringing on these exempt projects, we're going to keep a real close eye on it so that we don't lose capacity, but we're probably not going to be increasing the in-levy capacity.
I would just like not to lose, like next year. I don't wanna lose that money just because we've got a bump in the road where some fell off and the others haven't started yet.
Yep, just flipping through.
Does anybody else have questions on the debt?
No, it's pretty
Al had it
straightforward.
figured out before we finished opening the thing, so that's good.
Got a preview this morning.
Yeah, I went through this with her.
Yeah, I know.
I'm good.
No, JR, yeah, no, okay. Nick?
I'm good.
Okay.
One thing I do take note of is that the town has continuously maintained excellent bond ratings.
Oh, yeah,
I spent the last 25 years of my career managing that. And, Mary's doing an outstanding job.
oh, yeah. Oh, if we, that AAA rating is, you know, something that we're,
It's not common, I can tell you that. So,
no. but
Betsy's very proud of that.
I am very proud of that AAA rating. I was so happy when we got
also, I
that.
think I just want to sort of underscore the point that was just made, which is there's an inherent danger and conflict between the operating side and the financing and what you're calling the capacity side. And this is an area that the average person going to
Doesn't understand, yeah.
won't get.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult communications issue. And it's something that we need to be sensitive about. Because the average person will not understand.
No, they won't.
Mary, on the agenda for Thursday night. Does that conclude all of the budget, or are there still more beyond that?
The only thing that will conclude all of the departments. There are a couple of budgets that I have not reviewed with you. Those would be me, and that would be health insurance, life insurance, Medicare, the shared costs. We've done some of them, but not all of them. So I will,
And,
Agenda
yeah,
for
they are,
next Tuesday.
right.
I'm sorry.
I said they're on the agenda for next Tuesday.
I thought it was Thursday. I could be wrong, but they are coming momentarily.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is Thursday. You're right, it is this Thursday. So our next meeting is what I was trying to see. Does that conclude
Yes,
all of our budgets?
yes. So
So
then
then we probably start voting.
on the following Tuesday, on the 26th, we are going to start voting. You will be receiving the town manager's recommendations and you will start voting.
And that'll have that grid that you're creating.
I thought we had that week off.
No.
Silly me.
No. No.
Thanks.
Well, so what we did was we added that Tuesday in.
Yes.
Okay, I'm making dinner for 20. What
I
are you
now
doing?
realize it now.
So that, but we booked a lot of meetings in an attempt, we need to get this squared away before. rainy
Oh, we're gonna
days.
vote like every single budget in a week and a half.
In the first week of December.
He has to go on the 9th to the
Yeah.
selectmen and they want our votes.
Really?
I know.
With my calendar.
I know.
Oh.
So that, we'll have that and,
I thought you're all
and a
gonna,
well, the bottom line is to what we have to spend too, so we can get to the balanced budget, right?
that you will have that when you receive the town manager's recommendations.
We
Okay,
basically have two meetings. the third, and the fifth,
We
to
added
approve all the entire budget,
No,
We added more than that on the fourth.
we have the 26th,
right?
which.
The 28th is Thanksgiving, we're not meeting that day.
No,
The following Tuesday is the third.
so we have three meetings, third, fourth, and fifth. We have three
That's
meetings.
still a
Where
lot.
did
It is a lot, and you
When
know
did
what?
I miss the fact
I
that we're
did,
meeting
book-
3 days in a
I
row?
did set, and I did, post for the fourth,
All right,
just for just in cases. I'm trying not to do that to people, but there is another day. But if we're gonna get this
never,
level funded plus 2.5 thing squared away for him to present a balanced budget. I think we're gonna need more conversation for the option 2,
Oh. Very much so.
right?
I'm
But
not even sure how that's going to unfold.
So can we work, and I'm not saying this is the right thing necessarily as far
Sure.
but can we work on the balanced budget first? And get that to Rainey for December 9th, and then attack the second, the needs budget or the real budget?
is Rainey gonna have his town manager recommendations for option 2 as well, Mary, do you know?
Yes, he will.
See, I think that, and we're just gonna have to see how it goes. I know that he was hopeful that when we went through the departments, and Mary as well, that we would vote option 1 and option 2 at the same time. I'm not sure that we're gonna be able to do that in all cases, because there's gonna be conversation and
I want
this.
to know what happens at one department before I do something in the other department.
Right. We'll have the level funded plus 2.5, but he will have his town manager recommendations for level 2 as well. So some might be simpler than others, so we'll have it all spelled out in what he thinks it will be and what the delta is between the two. But. Mary, can I ask you a question on override? When the selectmen have to vote to say that, you know, an override will be on the warrant, correct?
Yes, correct.
Do they specify the number
Um,
of, an override of X?
yes. There will be a dollar amount associated with it, yes.
And that is voted by them?
Yes.
Okay,
Did we vote that?
well, we can support it or not. I mean, it can be amended.
No, but I'm saying, do we vote that, just the balanced budget?
Well, it'll be an article at town meeting, so yeah, we will vote that. The override will be a budget, will be an article at town meeting.
And it'd be a big number?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we'll kind of be doing it in 2 bites. One would be our determination on option 2. And one would be the article if the selectmen place an article for an override on the warrant.
So the
Jump in, Mary, if I'm talking ragtime.
No.
override has to be based on the option 2 recommendation.
Well, it has to be based on
That's it.
need.
But you're
Which is
you're
option
both
2.
saying, you're both saying true statements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, because, well,
Option is gonna reflect the needs and it will be a number. And that number will be made known to voters if the select board approves to put it on the warrant.
I was just connecting the macro to the micro.
right, so when we do this and send it up, then in essence, we are saying that if option 2 is what's something town meeting needs to consider, that there is a number at the bottom of option 2 that would dictate what the override, or should it come to pass, would be.
Correct.
I just think we just need to have plenty of time for people to talk about it, think about it, understand it.
So, and there will
Okay.
be, because, so the town manager is going to present his budget to the select board on the 9th. And the conversations about the budget don't end on the 9th. They will,
No.
and then And we will more than likely have to have some informational sessions with folks.
Yep.
As well as educational sessions on the mechanics of a Proposition 2.5 override. So, you know, our work is not done. Friend, if you're planning vacation, don't.
So let me ask you a question. We meet, we've, you know, gone through this, the balanced budget, the voting, blah, blah, blah. He goes on the 9th. What are you thinking we have to do as far as meeting after that for the rest of the year?
Well, you're gonna have warrant articles, right? So once the warrant has been
We
compiled,
usually do it after the first of the year.
you're gonna have, so you'll have fiscal advisory work, to, you know, once they complete their work and they'll pass that over to you guys. But I think for specifically to answer your question, I think what we need to do is, work on, a strategy to educate the public on what the budget includes. So we're gonna have to have some planning sessions to do that.
Right, I'm just trying to think about the meetings for December. And after the 9th, because you're exhausted, we're exhausted, well, I mean, honestly, I
Yeah.
mean, I would like to close up for the last 2 weeks in December if we could. And not reconvene until like the 7th of January. So that would be 3 weeks off. Is that possible?
No,
No,
All right, fine. You know, let me be hopeful for a second. What does everybody think that we should be doing? I just want to kind of set expectations within this group.
I'm a little tied up after Christmas
Oh, good.
for the week. But then after that, we gotta be back on.
Well,
Yeah.
but the
We-
7th
we
gets us
family
through,
issues
the
over
7th gets us through New Year's. New Year's is the Wednesday before that. So I don't think we meet the same week as New Year's. So the first meeting we can legitimately have in January is the 7th. We can't meet before that. I'm not coming in on January 2nd. I love you all, but no. I'm coming home from
I
Australia.
don't love you and I'm not coming in on the second.
Oh, you do. You just are trying to hide.
But the second is what?
The 2nd is Thursday.
That's that Thursday?
Yep. And
That's not.
yeah.
That's not possible.
No, that's not possible. So I think that
Oh,
the
for
first
crying
meeting
out
that
loud.
we can have is
Come
the
in
7th.
Tuesday, the 31st. Can have a meeting and have
Yeah,
our New Year's
yeah.
Eve party.
All right, so we're not gonna come back to the 7th. Because I think it's,
Well, then we're gonna be looking at all the articles, right?
Yep.
Are there any sets of articles yet? Okay. Are there
because they haven't
100
posted.
or 50 or 20?
Oh, I don't even, I don't know. I mean, we'll have our standard articles. I'm gonna have articles for you guys to replenish reserves. I've already met with CPC and they do have a number of projects that they are evaluating right now. And we'll see what they end up supporting, but they are coming before you on January 14th. We've already booked that date.
Okay.
So we go to the selectmen on the 9th. In theory, we could meet that Tuesday or, you know, the 10th or the 14th. And then what we need to discuss is the week after that. Do we work that week or do we take it as a vacation?
So if I make a suggestion,
The week of the 16th, because the next week is Christmas, again. I'm not gonna be here, you guys can certainly go ahead without me. But I mean, that shouldn't make a hill of beans difference whether you meet or not.
It'll be quicker meetings.
There will be much faster meetings.
We can FaceTime.
I'm not FaceTiming
Not
you from
from
Sydney,
Australia.
unless I'm at Bondi Beach.
She's a day ahead of us.
I FaceTime my sister, you know.
I know.
Let's give her,
No FaceTime from Bondi.
Great.
can we get,
We need to meet as much as we can without interfering with the holiday family.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, could we get to the 4th? And then,
Ninth, I mean.
yes, we get to the 9th and reevaluate what it is that we need to do, because I think we'll be a little bit closer to the option 2 and have an understanding of
So do we have to vote on anything?
All right, Linda, will you post
No.
10 and
No.
10 and 12, which
Just a
we
minute.
can cancel if we need to, right?
So I move we
Go home now.
adjourn.
Yeah,
Second.
Yep,
I just wanted to kind of,
But all in favor?
Teddy, you in? Yep, okay, he's talking.
Motion to adjourn, Teddy. Say aye. I'm in.
okay.